Welcome to Music Historian's Corner. I'm Josh Friedberg, and today I'm examining one of my favorite music groups and asking what makes its work American music. A mostly Canadian group who had toured for nearly a decade before making its first album, the band attracted a large audience for its music with heavy influences from the American South. So even though America technically means more than the US, how could the music of a group with 4 out of 5 members from Canada become so widely perceived as of the US, beyond the fact that the band's members had visited and toured the country? I focused specifically on their most acclaimed and popular album, the self-titled second album from 1969, featuring classics like Up on Cripple Creek and The Night They Drove Old Dixie Down. In an essay on responses to jazz icon Miles Davis's jazz fusion music, critic Eric Porter writes about how ideas about what defines any music change over time. For example, what is considered, quote, black music has depended on who's defining it as such and when and how such definitions are constructed. The specific historical and social conditions shaping the idea of what black music is at a particular moment. This is to say that ideas like this are not constant or fixed over time, contrary to what some scholars argue. When I ask what makes the album The Band American music, I mean in this album's time, around its 1969 release, what made the album distinctively seem or sound American, whatever that means. Musicologist David Embledge described the band as, quote, the memory among late 1960s rock stars, with, quote, a sense of historical roots that yield nostalgia without sentimentality and other qualities. In this sense, it could be inferred that the band's respect for American country music that Embledge notes represented the nostalgia with sentimentality, but the band's rock influences removed the sentimentality and made the band more appealing to their urban middle-class audiences at the time. So the band was associated with the past and the present in its time. Still, it seems from various writings that the band's music reminded many U.S. listeners of the music of the American South associated with its past, like early country, folk, and blues influences. So this album, Sounding American, it seems has a lot to do with the music looking back to sounds of earlier times, associated with American what's called roots music. So this may explain why those discussions around this album Sounding American occurred more than they did for more, quote, futuristic, not past-looking, but future-looking rock by Jimi Hendrix or Bob Dylan, who the band toured behind in the mid-60s before recording its own albums. Now, a question may occur. If I'm talking about this album Sounding American, why am I not being specific about what musical characteristics, like type of rhythm, harmony, or instrumentation, sound American? It's not only as noted that these definitions change over time, but that what arguably defines music as of a particular identity, male, female, black, white, American, British, and anything else, is its social function at a particular moment. Let's not forget that the types of identity I mentioned are not based on facts of biology or citizenship. They're based on social constructions, so that, for example, who has been considered white has changed over time in the US, so that race as an idea has nothing to do with biology. But along the lines of these ideas, Barry Shank, whose article on Bob Dylan I discussed in a previous Music Historian's Corner, has written that, for example, what defines music as black or white is the social function it serves, such as who the music unites for a common cause. So from this perspective, what makes the band American music, arguably, is how it united American audiences to connect to their perceived pasts, especially as, quote, an antidote, if you like, to the violence and despair of the 60s come-down, as critic Barney Hoskyns wrote, referring to events of years like 1968 and events like race riots and everything else. But still more questions emerge. If this album is considered American music, whose past was this music connected to, in relation to which American audiences did it unite? If a lot of the American fans of this album were middle and upper class people from urban and suburban areas, what was the purpose of these audiences connecting with the past associated with impoverished people and rural agrarian landscapes? What do you think? Until next time, this has been Music Historian's Corner, and I'm Josh Friedberg. So long.